To start, I would say you can record a full song, mix and master in FL Studio. There's Pro Tools, which is going to be at every big studio you go to. I graduated from a university with a degree in audio production, and the studio we use had Pro Tools. So I kind of taught myself how to use Pro Tools before I even started going to school. Like, I was already producing in FL Studio. So yeah, I thought I'd go over this session that I did with AJ. What it looked like at the studio is basically we used a Neumann U87 AI. All right, so this is the microphone we use in the studio. So it's almost about a $4,000 mic. Whatever mic you're using at home definitely is fine. Different mics are used for different things. There's condenser mics, dynamic mics, list goes on. Whatever mic you have, if it's $100 or $200, $300 mic, you're probably good, and you're probably running it into some basic interface. In the studio I went to at Shocker Studios, I took the U87 AI microphone and ran it into a warm audio preamp. So this was a preamp. Basically, this allows for a very clear sound. Like the Focusrite Scarlett has a preamp in it, but it's not gonna be as good as this, obviously. This is $2,000. Just work with what you got. This definitely can take your sound to the next level, a preamplifier. I used to think that it was just about the microphone, but in reality, I can use a $300 microphone at the studio, and as long as I'm running it into that preamplifier along with the compressor, then it's gonna sound, pretty decent. This is a compressor. Basically, it kind of just smoothens out the vocal. If someone's does a really loud take, or there's a peak, it'll kind of bring that down and make sure everything's going in really nice. This compressor and the preamplifier are to make sure you just get the best quality of sound going into your DAW, basically. Before we started on the vocals, AJ came in, he had an idea for the beat, and this is what I came up with on the spot. I think it took like 30 minutes to make this beat, 30 minutes to an hour, and this is what it sounds like. And then I made like a little outro. So that's the beat we made together on spot. He kind of just showed me what he wanted, and I went off of that, played those chords, and it was kind of like a simple West Coast type of vibe. That was the easy part for me. When it comes to recording in the studio, I think the challenging part is trying to get good vocal takes every time. So this is what we came up with as far as like the rest of the song, the vocals being laid down, all the effects. So I'll go ahead and play that.
I truly believe in a law of attraction. I just fake a smile, they say I'm good at acting. I just bring my money down into small fractions. I can't see the future, I'ma tell you what's gonna happen. I might end this season saying all your boys packing. I don't talk about my dreams, they just think I just bring my money down into small fractions. I can't see the future, I'ma tell you what's gonna happen.
As far as like the mix, I think everything came out pretty solid on this track. This is the dry vocal that came into my FL Studio.
I truly believe in a law of attraction. I just fake a smile, they say I'm good at acting. I just bring my money down into small fractions. I can't see the future, I'ma tell you what's gonna happen.
What I did though, I'll go ahead and do this for example. I put auto key to figure out the key of the song. So once I find out the key, we got G minor. First thing I put on is auto tune. Actually, this says B flat major. Okay, so it turns out the key, if I kept letting the beat play, it would tell me the key is actually B flat major. I put on low mel, and what I really focused on is the retune speed. This is gonna be how much auto tune is going in. So if you have it on 1, it's gonna sound like T-Pain.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive,
But if you bring it back to where I had it around 12, that's kind of where I had it for this session. No mixing template is gonna be, the same every time. So this artist, he wanted enough auto-tune that you could kind of hear it, but not like T-Pain. So flex is kind of gonna smoothen it out.
Magnet,
So
I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just being me.
the more you have it on there, the less you kind of hear the auto-tune. But if you leave it kind of low or even off.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive.
All right, so another thing I like to talk about is the level that these vocals came in at was
Magnet, I just stay
around -12 to -6, and maybe barely peaked at -3 dB. So basically, when I'm recording, I'm looking and making sure that it's around maybe -15 to -6. That's like a good healthy signal. And that way, when you compress the vocal, you don't bring up a bunch of noise, and then there's still room for peaks. So like if he got loud, or if we recorded around -9 dB, he's got all this room up here to, get louder. So moving on to the compressor though, I have the Pro Q-2, and it's kind of a mild
magnet,
setting.
I just stay in my own lane. They say
Thresholds at -17, ratio 2:1, fast attack, fast release, and a little bit of makeup gain.
magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just being me with a white tee and a skin fade.
Next, I have a Pro Q-3. This is basically a equalizer. I like to cut off all the low ends because we don't need that, obviously. For me, personally, when I talk, I have a really kind of deeper voice. So if I ever sang a rap on something, my vocal chain would probably look a little bit like this. Even if you don't have like a very deep voice, you still kind of want to get rid of this 50, 80K hertz. You kind of want to like get a high pass filter, kind of shape it like this, but always do it according to the artist you're working with.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just being me with a white tee and a skin fade. Being in the game, but I don't get played. They jumping off them porch, them boys should have stayed.
Yeah, so we don't want any of this, and we want a really good clean sound. And later in the chain, we saturate it and kind of bring up the highs. But this is a subtractive EQ, and I'm basically listening to all the bad frequencies I don't want. So on here, if I put this up, you'll hear some muddiness and some low end that we just don't want.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I don't get played. They jumping off them porch, them boys should have stayed.
Recently, I kind of learned that you don't want to do very narrow subtractive EQ like this, or like that. You kind of want to keep it a little bit wide. This one might have just been
Purpose, we've been staying low key, just knowing that we working. Always be myself, I don't change behind the curtains. I've been stepping so much.
That sounds bad, so we're gonna just leave it where it's at. If anything, I can bring it down a little bit more. The key when mixing vocals is you don't want to go too crazy. You don't want to like bring something way down here, and on this specific EQ, you can see how many decibels you're taking away. So right now, this is -20, which is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to just slightly, mold the vocal to how we want it to sound. If you leave your mouse just like hanging down here, take your hands off the computer, it'll show you certain frequencies that are very harsh. And I think that's what I did when doing this. I kind of just let it play, and then I listened to those frequencies that it pointed out, and I just brought them down. So I'll go ahead and show that.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just being me with a white tee and a skin fade.
One of the frequencies it showed me was this one right here. So if I bring this up, you'll hear that it sounds kind of harsh.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane.
On this EQ, you kind of just scroll with the mouse wheel, and you can control how narrow you want this band to be. So you could bring it down.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane.
But I'm gonna just leave it how it is. Okay, so we have another compressor. So this might be just to push up the vocal to -6, I think. So if I play it,
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just being me with a...
If I play it, it's kind of hitting and peaking at -9. I have a threshold of -8. It's taking anything that's really loud and bringing it back down so that we have an even, consistent waveform. I put up the output gain right here, and it boosted it
Magnet,
up to...
I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive.
around -9 and kind of -6. -6 is kind of where I shoot for with most of my vocals. I'd say that's a good range to kind of end your vocal at. Next we have this. I recently got into putting saturation on all sorts of things. So instruments, vocals, of course. Put saturation on to make it either more thick or have a little bit of distortion or have more harmonics. This one is PSP Saturator. It kind of attenuates the high end right now. I took the low and clicked that off, so it's not going to affect the low end too much. This big saturation knob is how much actual saturation you want. So, and I also control how much of the plugin is changing the vocal with this mix knob. So I think I had it at like 50 or 40 or something. So I'll go ahead and mess with the high end saturation, which is what we're using right now. But really, I love this level right here. This kind of boosts the high frequencies and I think gives you a really good industry sound. I think around like 3 to 6 is a good level to have it at. And again, you got to use your ear. So this is the vocal without the plugin.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just...
Okay, this is with PSP Saturator.
Magnet, I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just being me with a white tee and a skin fade. Being in the game, but I don't get played.
Another thing I haven't been shown is playing the vocal along with the beat while mixing. That's very important. Since I made the beat for him in the studio, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to save room for his vocal. So on these chords right here, see, I got PSP Saturator right there too. So I did a high pass filter, you know, right here, 96 hertz, and took some dips right here because I knew his vocal would kind of stand out around this range. Another thing I could do is kind of dip it, you know, there's not too much going on for these keys in the high frequency, but I mean, I could do like a little dip. Always make sure that you save room for the artist, then you will have a very clean mix. The PSP Saturator just kind of added more low end. What I have to do is re-put a high pass on there with the equalizer. And this time I just use a simple Parametric EQ stock in FL Studio. On to the next thing. On this though, I only use the treble and the compressor. Again, I think the compressor just basically like boosted it up. So we're trying to hit around -6 dB, and the treble probably added even more saturation, if it makes that much of a difference.
All my bitches bad like some habits. All my bitches bad like some habits. Addicted to this shit like an addict. Once I saw the jewelry, I knew I had to have it.
We're gonna go into another compressor, the final compressor. I think I just wanted something simple, so around -6 or -11 dB is the threshold. These are things you just gotta play with and watch tutorials on. Let's see what this sounds like.
All my bitches bad like some habits. Addicted to this shit like an addict. Once I saw the jewelry.
So as you can see, we're now hitting -6, maybe -5. That's like where the peak is, but the vocals are sitting from like -12 to -6. So it's going to be consistent all the way through. All right, we're almost done. We got the de-esser, Fab Filter Pro DS. Leave the settings how it is, and I think it sounds good. So
all my bitches bad like some habits. Addicted to this shit like an addict. Once I saw the jewelry, I knew I had to have it. Always got my hand.
It's pretty self-explanatory. There's a threshold and range right there. I would say the overall message is when using these plugins and practicing mixing with your friends on a Scarlett 2i setup at your home studio, do your research on every single plugin you have. All these plugins that I have right now are things that I've used and been through trials and tribulations with all these plugins, but at the end of the day, it's good to do your own research, and I think FL Studio overall is probably the quickest way you can record vocals, mix, make the beat, which is crazy important, and master the track all in one session like that, just like I did with this song. I say finally, for the vocals effects, this is reverb and delay. One thing about FL Studio that you should always do is separate your effects from the actual vocals. See, on the vocal chain right here, I don't have delay or reverb on the actual vocal chain. I sent the vocals to a separate send, and then I put reverb on those sends, and I'll explain that. So this is where all the vocals are. Now we have all these plugins and it's being processed. You can send a separate copy of these vocals, the processed vocals, into a whole different track, and then you can alter that accordingly. So what I did with this is I sent these vocals to insert 22 right here. So how I did that is I simply clicked on the vocals, click on it, and then you just left click on this right here. You don't have to right click and then do all that. You just left click. On the actual Reverb Send, I have, and you make a send and you're putting effects, you want to have the wet knob all the way up. You don't want the dry knob at all, basically. So turn the dry down, turn the wet knob all the way up. For this reverb, I did a low cut and then I did stereo separation, so it could be on the left and right side. Another reason why we add a send for the reverb is so that we can EQ the reverb, basically. So just like anything else, as far as like vocal wise, you don't want low end right here, especially on reverb, because it's going to make it really muddy here. So I'll go ahead and play it.
We believe in a law of attraction. I just fake smile. They say I'm good at acting. I just break my money down into small fractions. I can't see the future. I'ma tell you what's gonna happen. I might end this season send all your boys packing. I don't talk about my dreams. They just think I'm.
And I did the same thing for the delay. So basically, you click the vocals, whatever you want to make a send for, and then you route it. So I have it routed to insert 24. Add delay, turn the dry knob all the way down. This doesn't have a wet knob, but it has a dry knob. So turn the dry all the way down, always, and make sure the delay is on time. And if the beat is not on tempo, your delay is gonna be off, basically. So make sure it's on time, and this is what it sounds like with the delay, basically.
Truly believe in a law of attraction. I just fake smile. They say I'm good at acting. I just break my money down into small fractions. I can't see the future. I'ma tell you what's gonna happen. I might end.
And I did the same thing for the delay. I cut out low end, boosted a little bit of the high mid, and that's what I came up with. This is a stereo separator. So again, it's gonna put that signal on the left and right more. It's not gonna be straight down the middle. The reason why I did that is because the vocals are gonna be mono and they're gonna be straight down the middle in the mix. All together, this is what we got. Let's go ahead and listen to it. They say I'm good at acting. I just break my money down into small fractions. I can't see the future. I'ma tell you what's gonna happen. I might end this season send all your boys packing. I don't talk about my dreams. They just think I'm bragging, but I call it passion. But call it what you want. I'm staying in the front, but I don't like the front. I haven't seen my mama in a month. Man, what the fuck? Feeling like I'm stuck. Seen a lot of money I never thought I'd touch. All my bitches bad like some habits. Addicted to this shit like an addict. Once I sold her jewelry, I knew I had to have it. Always got my hand on the metal like a magnet. I just stay in my own lane. They say I'm attractive, but I'm just being me with a white tee and a skin fade. Being in the game, but I don't get played. They jumping off them Porsche, them boys should've stayed. I got homies in the north that love to get paid. In 2022, I think I found my purpose. We've been staying low-key, just knowing that we working. Always been myself, I don't change behind the curtains. I've been stepping so much, my feet just started hurting. They looking for your boy, well you better keep on searching. The hustle I put on for the culture. They coming for my neck like they a bunch of vultures. Gang full of soldiers, black and black, that's my favorite style. Rockin' G Fazos every night as well. You can check out my profile. I just stay out the mix, like my engineer. BBS just shining on my neck, crystal clear. I just bring my money down in the small I can't see the future, I'ma tell you what's gonna happen. Look at me that way, that way, look at me that way, that way.
morning, gym laps, everything changed when I got my pen back. If you tryna name names, then I've been him Jack. Holding hands with death, wake her on my breath. She smells it in the morning, make her ass upset. Ignore her for some days, and I hit her with a text. I've been on my fuck shit, hands around her throat. I'ma make them laugh, but don't play me as a joke. I've been blowing, now I'm blowing up. Celebrating every night, champagne in my cup. But when the shame is done, only pain in my cup. This ain't overnight, why they say it was luck. Don't ask what it costs if you ain't seen it once. Be careful who you trust, salt and sugar look a lot alike. I've been pushing weight and it's starting to feel light. She a ghetto bitch, she just my type. She a ghetto bitch, she just my type.
That's basically it. That's like the vocal chain I use for this track in particular. Like I said, things change. People have different tones in their voice. You might use a different mic. Your room might be different. There's so many things that affect the way you record and mix. But one thing to keep in mind is if you have a good general knowledge of what mixing is, and like if you just practice on yourself, practice your friends, try to get in the studio and just kind of watch people, learn that way, honestly. Thank you for tuning in, for sure.